We probably don't need you.
Where would you take me on a first date?
Against women in sports. He said he's never played football before. He's destroying a whole women's football team. Imagine how rich we'd get if we could bet on this. Yeah, they forgot the part where you film an innocent man in the background and you make him look like a creep for more views and attention.
Enemies are everywhere. And friends nowhere. To show your true heart is to risk your life. And then you are free. The path to enlightenment is a personal journey. A journey of inner peace. And how I learned to go further than I ever imagined. Sometimes the journey gets lost.
But I am calm within. I am Pacifica.
The 2023 Chrysler Pacifica.
Don't eat the dirt.
I cannot drive.
He's got a point. Some people are really fucking stupid. She's walking in front of a punch bag. She's got no awareness whatsoever. And if he'd have connected, he'd have got the blame and probably sent to jail. You're going to jail. You're going to jail.
Also mentioned that there's like 5-6 things you care about. So other than fighting and Harley Davidson motorcycles, what are some of those things?
I like big booty Latinas. What did he say? I do too. And there's nothing wrong with that. The most important thing is that they don't distract you from your main goals. And you remember,
We must stay focused, brothers. We must stay focused.
call me insecure all you want, but having someone you love fangirl over another man is weird. Is this man crying? Bruv, just leave. You ain't got to put yourself in that situation. And I actually agree with you. I think it is weird. I think a grown woman having an obsession with a celebrity that she's never met is a red flag.
Listen, I love the little hours. That's it.
On your birthday,
Yeah.
was you with him?
Yes, I was with him. But I love him. I can't. What you mean for a while? Because niggas like him, I didn't care. And I don't want no other.
As soon as I see a woman doing this extra shit, filming it and posting it online, I'm just thinking you're fake and you're doing it for the cameras.
Sensational.
It's actually his phone. He asked her to film it, and then he wrote the caption saying "weird date." Because I mean, who's not impressed by that? You're a bit weird if you're not impressed by that trick. That was amazing. It's the nicest thing a guy has done for you, but it turned you off.
I don't like when guys be like, "Good morning, my beautiful queen." It's cringy. Like, we just started talking. It's like already, yeah, my sexy chocolate. Like, oh,
Sexy chocolate.
Charlie, who says that? I had somebody cash at me money on my birthday.
How much was
It was $50, but I just felt like it was not very thoughtful.
What's the most
Yes.
toxic thing a guy has done that turned you on?
Like cursing me out. Hey, stop playing with me. Like just mad yelling. Like, what you yelling for? Like, calm down.
Like aggressive, maybe?
Yeah, like he's mad aggressive, but
Okay. So you know it's toxic, but it turned you on a little bit. Like, yeah, daddy, take it from.
this one dude I was talking to at one point, he would call me. He would like, "Yo, where you at? Like, who's around you? Yo, show me who's in the room." Like, that was super toxic, but it was like kind of a turn on because like, oh, you
He give a fuck.
care.
This exercise pretty much just shows that what women like and what women get aroused by are two different things. If a toxic man is what she seeks, a single mother is what she'll be. There's only one way it's ending for these three donuts.
Lady.
Giselle was cheating on Tom Brady for years. It recently came out that she had an affair with her trainer for the past several years, even while still being married to Brady. But then she went on to do an interview with Robin Roberts saying the divorce has been very hard on her. Even more so, crying in tears, saying that it was absolutely heartbreaking, when in fact she had been the one that had been cheating all along. How does one go on national television expecting sympathy when in fact you were the one that was cheating on Tom Brady? It just goes to show no matter how good-looking, successful, and rich you are, there's still no guarantees when it comes to relationships and marriage.
It's crazy, isn't it? You can be one of the best athletes of all time, and some average woman called Giselle can still cheat on you.
That's tough.
A lot of these athletes are great athletes, but they don't have great taste in women. We see so many NFL players, NBA players, footballers picking women that don't give a shit about them. They're just with them for their money. I think it's because a lot of these athletes are easy targets. They're young, they've got money, they don't have experience with women. They don't know the signs of a toxic woman. And instead of thinking with this, they're thinking with that, and they end up with the wrong one. Hopefully Tom Brady learns from it and he realises he can get any woman he wants. She doesn't need this donut.
Disney told me get all Domino's menu price pizzas for 50% off when you order online. Offer ends March 24th. Order now.
I'm standing here now, a biological male, wearing a dress with a pair of leggings. When you harp on your right to distinguish between men and women, are you afraid that you're going to be attracted to trans women?
I'm not.
Are you positive? Why is it that you harp on your right to distinguish between men and women? If you can always tell, why is it so hard?
Well, because it's not even merely that you're putting on a dress, it's that you and people who identify as transgender are infringing upon rights and spaces that properly belong to women. So when you ask me, why do you care about this issue? The reason is because we live in society and we have political rights, and also because we care for the truth.
So before, when you had a different opinion to a lot of these people, they call you transphobic, but apparently their new tactic is to say that you're secretly attracted to them.
Hello.
Yeah. You at the house?
Yeah, what's up? What's him?
He should be in his room.
Tell him to call me.
Alright. Timothy.
It reminds me of when women.
Tara said call her.
They call the man gay.
And he really like funny, like he down to earth and stuff. Like cool. So I told him that I broke up with him. I'm like saying like, what's up now? And he was like, you didn't break up with him. Like, no, you didn't. And I didn't, but I'm like, this is gay.
You see that? You don't want that. Yeah, I don't want none. That's crazy.
Black people have rightly said they don't want to be referred to as the N-word. All decent people respect that wish and don't use language that minority communities find offensive. I think that's simply what trans people are also asking. Clearly, as someone who grew up in the 1970s and saw the National Front march through immigrant areas using inflammatory language against black and Asian people, terrorizing those people, which did spill over into violence, attacks on Asian homes and shops, temples and mosques. I don't want to see a repeat of that.
To move this a little and say that the words he, him for a man are just the very ordinary words. They're not the equivalent of the N-word. One of the reasons that we need free speech isn't just because we enjoy speaking or we want to say what our ideas are, important though that is. It is because we use language to write rules and laws. And if we are not able to call all male people male and all female people female, we cannot write rules that say all male people must stay out of this space. So if we give away words like he, him, male, and men for people who are male, and we start calling them she, her, female, woman, it becomes impossible to say, but you are not welcome here. And the thing is, we're back to the question of who can come into female-only spaces. I contend that only female people can come into female-only spaces. So I need to be able to call male people male in order to explain why they can't come in. This is just tautological. This isn't me trying to resurrect the N-word. Half of humanity is male. Half of humanity is he, him. These are not rude words.
I'm getting cooked. People like this guy that say that anybody can identify as whatever they want, whenever they want, act like they care so much about humanity. But if they cared so much about humanity, why are they fighting to change systems that are in place to protect women? There's some people putting biological men in female prisons when they've been accused of sexual crimes towards women. Some people are really fucking stupid.
I was at work and a customer called me sir. And I said, sir, actually, it's a man. And then everyone around started clapping. And the guy who said it actually got arrested. And then he was sentenced to death, yeah, I'm sure.
How is it sexism when we have no barriers today? So we can
No
pick
barriers.
women, yeah. What's
We have no
you can do
barriers.
whatever you want.
Are you gay?
What's stopping you?
They know technically nothing's stopping them. They can try and do whatever a man does. They can go and do whatever they want. They just don't want to do it. Or deep down, they know they're not capable.
Setting aside the bias and the double standards, there's nothing wrong with wanting to improve outcomes for historically disadvantaged groups. There's nothing wrong with the ideals you identified as the ideals of the woke movement. The objection to woke culture is not the end that woke are pursuing, but the means they use to pursue it. And the favoured methods of the woke finder generals, as I'm sure all of you know, is not to argue, to persuade, to debate, but to smear, to ostracize, to publicly shame, to cancel. That, I'm afraid, is the tactics of the woke. This is the way they go about trying to achieve their objectives.
You're on record for stating, and I quote, "This is the gayest generation of America." What are your overall thoughts on this? Because some of your opponents seem to believe you have homosexual tendencies.
Well, it is the gayest generation ever. Every fact shows that more young people are gay than any other generation. Yeah, I think my record of my marriage speaks for itself. But is there something you want to tell us about your own?
I mean, you don't gotta accuse me of being gay. Just because you're married don't mean that you're not homosexual.
Well, you came up here asking about the gayest generation. I got some questions about you, man.
You're coming to my campus that I represent, calling us, one of the gayest generations.
It is
in America.
1 out of 5 young people are lesbian, gay, or trans.
And even though I don't,
it's the gayest generation ever.
Congrats, man.
Congrats.
Appreciate your time, man.
Yeah.
Thanks, man.
Internet's gonna love that one.
Weird guy, I don't think he's standing up for gay. He's pissed off that he's part of the gayest generation. Either way, facts are facts, and he's not trying to insult anybody, because it says here, nearly a third, or 28% of Gen Z adults in the United States identify as lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, or queer, a larger share than older generations.
If you were to describe what it means to be a man or to be masculine, I'm Griffin, and I don't identify as a man. I'm non-binary. I still have elements of, my identity that are masculine, elements that are feminine, elements that don't fall within that range. I personally just don't feel tied to the norms or the confines of gender at all.
I think that the notion of masculinity is just something that can be possessed by man or woman. Man, woman, non-gender conforming person. What it means to be masculine is just changing and very fluid.
What the fuck are you talking about, man?
I was not always a good man. I was not always what you would call a healthy masculine man. And so as my life has changed, I've identified 5 points that I think make a truly masculine man masculine.
Steve McCallum.
Point number 1 is a man who walks with God. Point number 2 is a man who stands on principle. Point number 3, which is a masculine man, is self-sacrificing. So someone who is willing to sacrifice for point 4, the people that he leads. A true man is a leader. And number 5, a masculine man is never a coward.
Fellas, do not allow society or anybody to make you think that being a masculine man is a toxic bad thing. But yeah, it's toxic masculinity bullshit. There's only toxic people. You can get toxic women, toxic men. When shit hits the fan and there's a war, it's masculine men that come to the rescue. It's not weak men that are not proud to be men.
Dear leftists, I'm very happy to take part in this debate about democracy in Europe. So let me give you some example of very major democracy in Poland. Polish nation rejected you, dear leftists, 8 times. 8 times in a row you have lost elections in Poland. So get used to it, because you're gonna lose again. Let me give you some data about Poland and Polish democracy. The lowest unemployment in European Union is Poland. The highest GDP after COVID in European Union is Poland. One of the lowest debts in European Union is Poland. So don't give us this rubbish. We don't need your doctors. We don't need your engineers. Take them all, and pay for them. Because there is 0 terrorist attacks in Poland. Why? Because there is no illegal migration in Poland. So don't give me this look.
I mean, can you blame Poland for not wanting to be part of the woke madness that's spreading all over Europe and America? It's getting ridiculous.
So, I'm going to spend the next minute screaming, because that is what is going on in here.
Trans women should be allowed in women's sports.
So you look, for example, at someone like Leah Thomas, who was the swimmer from UPenn, who came first in her event. If you look at her statistics from her freshman year when she was competing in the male division to where she was at by her senior year or junior year, whatever last year was, when she was competing and winning the tournaments, as she started to take estrogen and hormone replacement therapy and things like that, her statistics went down a lot. And the difference between her and the male world record and the difference between her and the women's world record were pretty much the same when she was competing as a man versus competing as a woman. A lot of other biological factors outside of hormones, we think, play a much bigger impact on what sports are, when really the only difference that tends to happen is hormones and the way you can build muscle mass.
Did he say anything to you that persuaded you to move to the disagree line?
No. Biologically born women should only be able to compete with the women, and then biologically born men should only be able to compete with the men.
Because why?
I feel like what he said about the different body mass, muscle mass, I do understand that they do take hormone blockers to help with that, but I still feel like there may be some sort of disadvantage.
I said it before, but let's just allow biological men to compete against women in sports. Not just so donuts like this can see just how bad it would be and how it would ruin women's sports, but also so we can all get rich and place bets on the biological men.
Tell them to bring me my money.
People have referred to me as she, and I've been like, oh, not she, okay. And then like, I'm so sorry, I didn't know, I'm trying to do so much better. And at the end of the day, you're there to be taking responsibility for your mistakes. You're allowed to make mistakes, that's why we're correcting you, so you can do better and move on. But like, you're putting trans people in a really uncomfortable position when you make them try to make you feel better or alleviate any guilt. You know, I think it is about being patient with people, but also we're not just going to be patient for anyone, because you need to actually be making an effort. These are new things and they do take time to learn.
Look, pronouns and gender aside, it's crazy to me that so many of these donuts are coming out of universities. That's meant to be the place where you get an education, not where you get dumber. And this is why I completely agree with this quote. It says, never confuse education with intelligence. You can have a PhD and still be an idiot.
The journal.
This is it. This is when we find out. Quick question. Student body math proficiency. What? When we say it's good, fair. Understood. Excuse me. Homes.com.
In recent months, we've seen the issue of slavery and colonialism expand beyond campuses, as we've now got, of course, from Barbados to Jamaica, prominent Caribbeans are also calling for Britain to pay reparations for slavery and the consequences of colonialism. And, Madam Speaker, were we engaged in this debate in 1807 or 1833, I likely would have crossed the floor to support the motion opposite, because, of course, the victims of the horrendous horrors of slavery would have been alive and deserving of damages. But it's not 1807, it's not 1907, it's not even 2007. Over 2 centuries have passed since Britain led the world as the first empire in history to abolish slavery, and the right of reparations died long ago, because reparations are fundamentally about matters of tort law. The purposes of damages, restoration, of reparation, is to restore the victim, the slave, to the position they were in before the damage occurred, slavery. The actual victim only can receive damages, not their descendants. And therein lies the rub, because some 6 or 7 generations separate those alive today from their British Empire slave ancestors. And whilst not just yet, thank you so much. Whilst it's undeniable that 19th century slaves suffered unspeakable horrors, in what way can this lead one to conclude that their great-great-great-great-great-grandchildren are also victims and deserving of reparations too?
Yeah, it's not because mine or your great-great-great-granddad was a dickhead that you've got to pay for it now. And it's not because your great-great-grandmother
Say what?
that you're a victim.
On the contrary, from Britain to the Caribbean, the descendants
I
of
think you
slaves
did something
today
good. I ain't been hearing you if you've been talking.
quality of life than they would have had their ancestors remained in Africa. And that's an indisputable fact.
You talking about my shit?
If you let me carry on, I'll tell you why.
Oh.
This man's a historian speaking at Cambridge University. It's meant to be one of the most prestigious universities in the world with some of the most intelligent students. Yet you've got a bunch of them getting angry when they hear facts they don't like, and another bunch in the background giggling like little children.
But first I ask you, is a current son of a slave ethically entitled to benefit from their ancestors' sufferings? And who should pay? Is it ethical for an innocent person today to be culpable for the sins of their forefathers? Now, CARICOM, which is the Caribbean body calling for reparations, wants British taxpayers to pay. But why? Out of a population of millions, there were only 3,000 slave owners in Britain. The vast majority of the population of Britain descend from people whose lives were one of abject poverty and hardship, working in hellish conditions akin to serfdom. Why should they, as taxpayers, pay reparations? It's not just yet. Thank you so much. 16% of the British population is now also foreign-born. So why should they pay for reparations? What about the descendants of slaves living in Britain today? Why should people from Trinidad and Tobago living here pay reparations to people in Jamaica? Then again, why is the demand for reparations always focused and framed in terms of Britain? Why are no activists asking for reparations from the African states that were equally complicit in slavery? Should they not pay reparations? They provided the slaves that were transferred over the ocean, and millions more slaves were kept in slavery in Africa by other Africans, just as were being transported across the Atlantic. Why does nobody ever actually speak about that unpleasant truth? What about the Arabs and the Muslims who bought and sold African slaves for centuries before the British arrived and continued to do so into the 20th century until the British and the French tried to stop it.
What most people don't seem to know or forget is most races have been victims of slavery at some point. Slavery is a fucked up thing that's existed since the beginning of civilization. Humans have always enslaved other humans, and it's still happening today, but they don't give a fuck about those problems that happen now. They're too busy playing the victim to things that never even happened to them and happened to their ancestors hundreds of years ago.
And indeed, what about the slavery that carries on today? The International Labour Organization says that currently approximately 7 in every 1,000 Africans is a slave. 10 million people. In 2017, CNN reported hundreds of slaves are sold every week in Libya. So much energy is given to historic reparations and the historic plight of slaves. I would have more time for the argument if the people were actively pursuing that course of action were equally vocal about surely the far more horrendous plights of slaves today, where there are more slaves today in bondage, in slavery, than crossed over the Atlantic. So where are the protests outside the Nigerian High Commission? Where are the protests outside the embassies of Niger, which has 800,000 slaves today? What about Mali and Chad and Sudan and Cameroon? It's almost as if there's an ulterior motivation behind the call for apologies and reparations exclusively from Britain.
Yeah, that's just because it's not trending on TikTok or Twitter yet. As soon as it is and it hits the mainstream media, they'll all jump on it. Because a lot of the time, they don't care about these problems. They just care about looking like they care about the problem.
And how far should we take this? Should Britain seek reparations for the Barbary slaves? 1 million Europeans were enslaved by the Ottoman states of Morocco, Algeria, and Tunisia. And it carried on after the abolition of the slave trade by the British. Should Britain demand reparations from North Africa? Of course not. It's time to move on, and so should we. What disadvantage has colonialism actually caused to those living in the former British colonies of the Caribbean? Most of the former colonies of the Caribbean are now successful middle-income countries. The GDP per head of the Bahamas is higher than Portugal and is comparable to Spain and Italy. You never hear that, do you? Rather than writing checks to well-off areas of the world, why not focus on countries and areas that are actually impoverished and require aid? The population of India soared from 170 million to 450 million over the course of the Raj because of medicine, health, and accurate and proper nutritional standards and food storage compared to how it had been. There had never been in history of India such a surge in population growth. And let's not forget also what Britain did for women's rights, because I think it's fair to say that it's thanks to the British Empire that we have had the progression of women in Africa and India through society. Because, of course, India's history is one of female oppression. It was the British who abolished sati, the burning of widows on the funeral pyre of their husbands. It was the British that stopped the infanticide of young girls. And it was the British who allowed Hindu widows to remarry. I'm sorry if you don't like the facts, but facts are actually facts. Universities were brought into Africa and India by the British. It's quite. There will be no system of democratic legislatures within these regions.
It's like this comment says, imagine being at an educational establishment and getting angry when someone actually teaches you something. He ends up completely silencing those rude little donuts in the background as well.
I'd like to end by quoting the great black civil rights activist and socialist Bayard Rustin, a friend of Martin Luther King Jr.'s and posthumous recipient of the Presidential Medal of Freedom from Barack Obama, who said, if my great-grandfather picked cotton for 50 years, then he may deserve some money. But he's dead and gone, and nobody owes me anything. Thank you.
That's the chief. We all do.
I think all this man is saying is Britain needs to stop paying and apologising for the past. He's not denying that terrible things didn't happen. He even said if it was 1807 and he was part of it, he'd apologise. He's also just trying to point out that some good things came out of it. There's less poverty in these countries. women have more rights and there's better healthcare.
And look, we have some big facts here. Colonialism and capitalism together lifted more people out of poverty in the world than any other two forms that we have here. Wherever you go in the world, particularly British colonialism, every region of the world, the most successful, the most democratic, and usually the richest countries are those that have a former colonial British inheritance. And there's a reason that Canada, Australia, and New Zealand always rank amongst the 10 best countries in which to live, and that's because of their colonial inheritance. You know, the army, the military, the schools, universities, hospitals, the infrastructure of government, the civil service, all of that is due to the British inheritance. And if you look around the world, it's impossible to say that the countries of Africa and Asia and elsewhere would have had the evolution towards democratic legislatures and stable countries were it not for colonialization.
Well, it's an interesting statement. It's a brave statement. Dorinda is, there's steam coming out of her ears.
There really is. I mean, Rafe, you sound quite mad. I mean, I don't know where you get your facts from.
Not for history books. You should try to read one once in a while.
I don't know which history books you're reading, but they're not correct because you're talking about benefits to who? Self-indigenous people and people who were colonized. And actually, I call colonization genocide. Let's speak facts. Your facts are actually British colonization, genocide, killed.
Genocide is a very difficult word.
I'll let you speak. Killed hundreds of millions of people. It's murder. There's a legal liability here. They killed hundreds of millions of people colonizing the world. And actually, I don't like this argument, Eamon.
Yeah.
Actually, it was in the past. Because you said that in the break. It's in the past. Let it go. The ramifications of colonization are still felt today. Aboriginal people are still the poorest in health, education. An Aboriginal teenager is more likely to go to prison than
I'll tell you what someone said, him historical, her hysterical. And it gets worse.
Totally understand your argument there. But part of me says, look ahead, stop looking back. We can't change the
How can you look ahead when you're still suffering? People who were former slaves, their families are still suffering.
No one is suffering from colonialism. Come on, Dorinda. You're spouting nonsense. Firstly, hundreds of millions of people.
Hundreds of millions of people were murdered. Rafe, you don't know your facts, and I feel sorry for you.
Okay, Dorinda may be saying that may well be true, but Dorinda basically saying it wasn't worth the price that was paid.
Well, it's absolute nonsense. Firstly, excuse me, it's now my turn to speak. Thanks so much. Hundreds of millions of people did not die underneath the British Empire.
Yes,
That's complete nonsense. Also, life expectancy for Aborigines for thousands of years had been 40 years of age. You know, they were a Stone Age Paleolithic culture when the British arrived there. They now have life expectancies of 70 years, 30 years longer. I'm sorry, I'm giving you absolute facts here.
It's decades less than white Australians.
And there are many reasons for that, but it's not due to colonialism. Their life expectancy increased by 30 years in 200 years. After tens of thousands of years, it was 40 years. And I'm terribly sorry, but you need to go back and do some research.
Know your facts because actually...
I mean, he knows plenty of facts. They're just facts that she doesn't like and go against her little race grifting act. I don't even think that deep down she believes what she's saying. She's just saying what she thinks makes her look like the best person. She's virtue signaling.
The general audience that's listening and watching us today will respect what both of you are saying, but they'll say you're losing the argument because he seems very calm about this, and you rightly probably so you're inflamed about this, aren't you?
Because people died at the hands of British government and the British monarchy.
All right, I'm sorry, can I just interject here? Well, you spoke
People
quite a while.
died, Eamon. Hundreds of millions of people died.
Okay, under the Indian Raj, the population of India increased from 170 million to 450 million. The whole cyclical famines of India ended because of British storage techniques and malnutrition projects. That's why I'd love to have a longer discussion where I can expose the nonsense that you're spouting here. Also, the British advanced women's rights in India. The history of women in India is one of oppression. The British banned sati, the burning of widows on the funeral pyres, and the British allowed Hindu women to remarry.
In 1919, you shot
You wouldn't be here enjoying the lifestyle you are were it not for the Britain's great advances for women. I'm terribly sorry.
What you're saying is...
What's the word?
What's the word?
Shit, I'm trying to see.
folks. She funny as hell. To I'm at 80s right now. I should have answered what you mean, folks. She being wheels.
Oh no, that's what I'm trying to. I'm like, what motherfuckers on thing?
I say, huh? Boy, his capping ass. Boy, I told AD, I say, you got traffic. He say, no.
That's what I was saying. Like what?
Motherfucker just told me they was in OP. I'm like, how the fuck you in OP? You don't got traffic. Like, what the fuck?
Man,
What's that? Bapping.
I'm trying to figure some shit out now, man. That's what I'm saying. What the fuck? Motherfuckers over here.
Hold on, I'm gonna text you about traffic. I'm gonna text some blue check. Where you at?
Shit, I'm at the spot right now. 2K. I'm finna get wheels though. I'm waiting on my shit.
Because Britain, the great British Empire, we went there and we advanced social justices and all that. Therefore, I'm lucky. I'm not lucky if my ancestors were murdered at the
Your ancestors are also my ancestors. We're both Sikh, all right? So don't speak as if you have complete domain over this, all right?
I'm not lucky.
You are absolutely lucky.
Aboriginal people are not lucky because of British colonization. British colonization was genocide.
I'm saying as a woman, as an Indian woman, you are lucky because of colonization, because your life would not be as...
country where I faced racism. I could have been back home, and actually India could have been richer. Thankfully, we are richer now.
India is one of the world's 5 most racist countries. I'm terribly sorry to break it to you.
That's got nothing to do with colonization.
He was calm and just saying facts, and she was acting like a little teenage girl that can't control her emotions. And if she doesn't like England and she feels like the victim, then leave.
Man, who want some?